under the team BMG. But on site, I'm actually running two enterprises. One is on a platform to empower like the lower income group women.
Great.
To connect them to corporates, retail restaurants, hotels on their big routes.
Yeah.
I think we're in the process where I'm very grateful to have mentorship being provided during the exhibition.
Logistical, but then cultural differences too. Again, in how you present the information that's being asked of you.
Hi, I'm Zian from Malaysia. I'm currently doing a crowdfunding platform for smallholder farmers in Malaysia. Last year I received a grant of $10,000 US from YCD, another program. But it was through pitching, but not really on writing. So really looking forward on this workshop to improve my writing skill and receive grants that can help me to scale up my startup.
Great.
Hi, I'm Satya from Indonesia. I work as a business development team in the tech startup. So for my grant writing experience, I also an advisor for Special Olympics Asia Pacific Youth Council. So we usually do we give grants and we do write grants too in order to execute Special Olympics missions.
Great. Great perspective from both sides.
Yeah.
So cool.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Bernhart Farras. Currently, I'm the president of an entrepreneurial platform called TERKONEKSI. So we never claim we are a social enterprise because we don't want to. We just want to make sure it's clear. So we separate the non-profits. Branch, we have a Hibah Foundation, and also the profit-making organization called Hibah Enterprise.
Okay.
So in the foundation, we are focused on health, education, and also financial independence. We receive several grants as well there.
Yeah.
And in the enterprise, we focus on incubating, consulting, and also doing venture investment. And other than that, I also lead a startup called Permintaan. It's a productivity platform that started a year ago from Indonesia, and basically we are building an application for people to become more productive.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. People will love that.
Hello, my name is Menulis, and I'm from Menulis. And I'm a self-entrepreneur and of fashion design and well as decorator and event organizer for any event. So regardless of the grant, I have two positions that I'm working on. One is being a leader and a mentor to Timorese young models. It's more like contribute in some other agency which is named Loop Modeling Agency, which will not fully receive the grant from the agency. So it's more the agency is also looking for a sponsor for the government, also from some local sponsors.
Sure. Great. Okay. Thank you all. Yeah. You are a very impressive group of people. And thank you for doing your introductions. I know that took some time. And I think it's really helpful just to kind of get a sense of where you all are coming from and what you need, what you're looking for. But then also, again, like to kind of pool your resource amongst you, right? Because you all are doing this work and you have that on the ground experience. Okay, so this can be, very conversational. Please feel free to ask questions, make contributions. It can, again, like I am not the expert in the room. I'm just offering some advice from that level of rhetoric that I was talking about, just the actual writing of it. So really what I'm going to focus on today is what to write and how to write it. So again, this is taking a kind of big picture look to grant writing. I know the dream is to write that one grant application and be able to kind of source it out to multiple applications. And as much as that is the dream, do your research and do customize each application, because really that funding institution is going to want to see that you know who they are and what they want, and by aligning themselves with you, you are part of that kind of brand or reputation or the work that they're doing. So as much as you generate content, again, so like the kind of storytelling elements about your organization or your social enterprise or what you're doing, do come at this with the expectation that you will write and revise and rewrite and revise, and that you're going to keep doing this. You all seem to already understand that really well. Okay. So one of the first tips that we like to give is to treat the guidelines as an assignment sheet. And again, so funding institutions and organizations will come at varying levels of instruction. Some places will even do a kind of digital interface where you just kind of plug in your information and you populate the fields that they're looking for. Other places might not be quite so prescriptive, right? So again, lots of variation in terms of the instructions or guidelines that they're giving you. And I will share this presentation. So feel free to, of course, to take pictures, but I just don't want you to feel like you have to like scribble, like furiously scribble everything down, because I will share it with you all. So always, always, always give them what they're asking for, and don't give them what they're not asking for, right? So be very, very mindful of, you know, if they've gone to the effort of making this kind of guidelines or instruction, it's because they want you to follow them. So this is not the place to get creative or rebellious, right? So one, you want to make sure that your project mission is a good fit for the funding organization, and that you and your project meets the required criteria. So when I say something like you're a good fit, what comes to mind for you all? What do you think what are we looking for when we think about fit?
What aligns for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Or so like if a funding organization is into like clean water or water conservation, and you're doing something more about like sustainable electric systems, related, right? All part of the same work, but there's not that alignment that they're going to be looking for. But you can also think not only about the kind of area of work that you do, but values and philosophy, right? The certain kind of ethos or ethics that you're bringing. Because again, you are going to be representing that organization if they give you their money. And so they want to make sure that you can do that in a way that, you know, puts their brand, again, for lack of a better term, but that's what we're talking about, right? So number 2, look for hints about how the funder wants information organized. Again, sometimes they will tell you exactly how they want that information organized. Other times it will be a little less directive. But do, again, like read it really carefully before you start going to writing the application, just to make your life easier and to give them the information in the order and the place that they are looking for it, right? So like if they ask you to, you know, describe the kind of origin story of your organization in a certain section, do it in that section, because they want to be able to go to that and be like, oh, I asked for this information and it's right in the spot where I asked it to be. And number 3, can't emphasize that enough, you know, don't send them stuff they don't ask for. As much as it might be really tempting to do that, because you have so much and you've thought about this and you've done the work, if they're not asking for it, don't give it to them. Because ultimately what you're doing in terms of the amount and type of information that you're sharing, you want them to make it as easy on them as possible. So again, so what makes it easy on a funding committee? That you're giving them what they've asked for, that you're putting that information in the place that they've asked for it, right? And that you're not making that information hard to find. either, hard to find either by where it's located in the document or the kind of style. So like, say they ask for a description of something and you write like 1,000 words, it's like, oh my gosh, no, right? Make it short, concrete, succinct, and to the point.
Question.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think many grant providers do ask for a one-pager,
yeah.
and it's always a challenge to think of how much information to cram into that one-pager.
Yep.
What would you think? Like, what's your take on that? Like, should we really cramp up everything we know, or like give it like a 20-30% space for aesthetics? Yeah.
Oh, so you're talking about just like actual design of the page?
Yeah,
or like
because-
white space and
Yeah, white
margins and
spaces.
stuff like that?
Because you could cramp it like, a Harvard CV, right? It's full with
Right,
words and all
right.
that. Yeah.
I would recommend against cramping.
Right.
So like, I would, don't ever go below, I would say 12-point font. If you really have to, maybe 11. Again, like, so we're talking about if we want to make it easy on them to, if it's literally difficult to read and like you need a magnifying glass to read it, don't do that, right? Also, like if they're asking for a one-pager, don't get crazy with margins. Like don't go to 0.3 when the standard is 1 inch, right? So you can play with the formatting in a way that suits you, but don't overdo it to the point where, again, they're looking at this and being like, this gives me a headache, right? Because you don't, just like with a CV or a resume, like there are certain things you can do and play with, but if you go crazy and just pack it all in there, it's counterproductive, right? So that balance of information is really, really important, but then of course, like typography and design, clean, simple, don't go nuts.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, another really important thing to kind of keep in mind in terms of how you approach doing this is to consider the grant proposal as a form of persuasion. You are persuading whomever is reading your application that they should give you money, right? And so you are making an argument. How do you make that argument? If you are persuading them to give you money, what are some of the things that we do to make it persuasive? Yeah.
I think that's something we offer that aligns with their purpose.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, that's the biggest one, right? This project is viable. You have presented yourself as a credible person to lead this project, that their money is not going to go to waste, right? They are making an investment in you, and so to persuade them to do that, you give credibility to your project and to yourself.
I think from my experience with USAID, the biggest thing we look for is really the team who's going to execute it.
Great.
We take that aside from just like looking at what aligns.
Yeah.
It's really like the people, like whether we think they have good work ethic, whether we think they're gonna follow through.
Okay.
That's what we invest on, more like the people also.
Amazing. Okay, so really this emphasis on ability to execute. So let's spend a little bit of time there. So like how do you demonstrate ability to execute? So obviously you kind of bolstering your own credibility. Like I'm a leader, I have this vision, I have this past experience, right?
What we look for is more of track record. So how many years have you been working in this field?
Okay.
Or like educational background or other projects you've worked on before that have succeeded.
Sure.
But I see how sometimes that doesn't work for like smaller grants.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite hard also to gauge. So it's really from your interaction with the team that you'll get that information from.
Yeah, and if you're new to this, right, you might not be able to point to a lot of to a really big track record as you're getting started, right? So, yeah, I think to that point, how are you going to work with the team? How are you going to do this? Show us, make it really clear to us, and convince us of that. Yeah.
Follow-up question for that. The team agree that this is very important factor. But then, because we have to compete with the American team, for
Right.
example, in our industry. And the American team, they are very familiar because they have worked in Google, Amazon, and
Sure.
stuff.
Sure.
But we have not yet had
Yep.
the chance to.
Yep.
How can we compete with them? Even if we have the traction, very strong traction already. We have a lot of like revenue users.
Yeah.
So how can we compete?
It's a great question, right? What do you think?
Make yourself unique.
Yep.
Like you stand out from the other project.
Yep. Emphasizing what you can do or what makes you stand out from that field. And so I would recommend never apologizing for a lack of that experience, but being more positive and more proactive in what you can do, what you hope to do, and how you are, again, so you mentioned, I think, the word work ethic, how you are passionate and committed to this project and you're going to get it done. I mean, that playing field may not be level, right? I don't think the so-called level playing field, I believe, is a myth no matter what, right? Because people are coming at it from such different financial resources, work experience, etc. But that would be my recommendation there, is to not position yourself as in a deficit or as lacking, but that you have all this up forward-looking, moving energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we should not talk about like our background. We should talk about what we have done for this project specifically, and we have to achieve.
Well, again, like I think it depends on what they're asking for. So if they're asking for work experience and educational experience, 100% give it to them, right? What I'm trying to say is, like, in telling that story about your organization, I would not suggest, like, well, we don't have the experience of someone who's worked for Google. Like, just don't do that, you know? Like, set yourself apart and really highlight what you have and what you can do. Okay.
Michaela.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'd also like to share that one mindset I always think of when I'm writing grants is that these organizations are looking for other organizations that they want to help.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I always want to show in anything I write is what can they help in our organization.
Yeah.
So what's the potential for development or for help that they can do by giving us this.
Yeah.
So I think with Minho's question, if there's potential for helping your organization better than these Americans who already received all the grants, then I'm sure they find potential also in helping you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would, on that note, be very, very clear about the areas for which you are making the ask, right? You know, you have to be like, we need your help, we need your money. No, we need your money, we need your help to do this, right? You know, and again, that makes it easy on them. So rather than being like, we really like you, we want to help you, but we're really not sure how to do it, you're telling them, actually, here, this is what I need, this is how you can help me. Make it easy on them to help. You're facilitating that process. We'll pop over there in the back of here.
Yeah, I think one thing that through experience, working for a small, like a new startup trying to get the first grant or the first, second grant,
Yeah.
what's really helpful to include if you don't have that technical background in the team is to find someone to endorse you.
Sure.
So we have like a few mentors, or the first grant that we've gotten, we find the biggest person, like the CEO of that grant, and ask him or her to give us a quote, and then include that in our
Sure.
documents. I think that really helps build that credibility, as we don't have the experience of technical background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finding people who will vouch for you and your project, who you are maybe consulting as mentors, or again, additional resources. Yeah. Sounds great.
To add to what Michaela said, I think aside from being clear about where they can help, you also need to be clear about how that help is going to be sustainable. So when we talk about grants, it's not just that they're going to give you money and you're going to spend it all, but in the long run, what are the effects that's going to lead to build your organization?
Yep. Yeah. the word for that is impact, right? And people love using that word impact, and I think it can mean a lot of different things. But ultimately, it's like the way that I think about impact is what you're doing matters, it's significant, and you can think about how you present, why does this matter? So this could be getting women into small business entrepreneurship. This could be facilitating access to technology and improving the lives in these ways, right? But to be very, very clear about that significance and that impact and how it's going to be measurable and sustainable. Absolutely. Because again, this is an investment from their part. They don't want to throw a bunch of money at you and you kind of flash in the pan, you do this thing, and then it's over, right? They want to see some duration out of that investment. Back to this slide. Keeping in mind also, this is the work that I do as an instructor of writing. You always want to think about your audience and how you are speaking to your audience. And so the audience for your grant application, sometimes you may know who's on the selection committee. You may know the kind of personnel of the funding organization, but to anticipate what they need, and that helps inform some of the choices that you make, right? And what I mean by that is, like, so say you are working in tech, right? And you know that the funding committee has that experience. You can probably get away with using more technical language and jargon and things like that, because you can reliably expect your audience to understand what you're talking about. If you don't know or kind of are unsure about who that audience is, I would step away from overly technical language and jargon, because what's going to happen if you just jam-pack it with a bunch of jargon and the person who's reading your application is not from your field? What's going to happen? They will not understand. And typically, like human nature, what we don't understand, we lose interest in, right? And so we don't want that to happen. So when I say think about your audience, that should help you make choices about word choice. So that's language, the kind of terms that you use. This is also about the type and amount of information that you share. So if your audience has no idea who you are and what you're doing, you might need to give more background information. Or if you're working in a field that is brand new, no one's really done it before, you might need to spend some more time doing that kind of background, setting the stage type of thing. Whereas if you're coming into something that's really well established, you don't need to spend so much time there, right? Okay, so your audience is going to include people who may or may not have expertise in your field of work, right? They want to support good projects, and I think we're doing a really good job of covering what does it mean to be good, credible, sustainable, a healthy investment for them, aligned with their values, etc. And this is an important one too, this last bullet point. These are competitive, right? So they need to say no to a lot of people. What you don't want to do, you want to make it really hard for them to say no to you. And the way that we do that are all the things we're talking about, both in terms of your project, but how you present it, and how you construct this document that represents you and what you're up to. So I just gave a quick definition of persuade. So to move by argument, entreaty, or expostulation to a belief, position, or course of action. You are moving them to believe in you and your project, take the position of wanting to align with you, and then the course of action, of course, is giving you the grant. Any other comments or additions to make about what we've been talking about here in terms of audience? And what I mean audience are the people who are reading your application. And again, not to be overly cynical, but in a perfect world, someone would sit down and read your grant application and spend time with it and go back to it and reread it. It's not happening, right? They're probably going through a lot of them. And again, that's where you want to make sure that you're giving them what they want, because if you don't, it's an easy no.
Yeah, one tip that we got
Yeah.
when we write for grants. So because from their perspective as a grant provider, the return on investment is really low.
Yeah.
They're not expecting any financial returns.
Right.
So as a marketeer, we always tell them, or we kind of try to sneak in, how are we going to shout out about it,
Yeah.
and how it's going to give them a good name.
Yeah.
And it's not the best thing to talk about, but we always just try to sneak it in, even during the presentations,
Sure.
and that really helped us a lot
Yeah.
in terms of getting grants.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially national grant providers or corporates that have a big sustainability agenda.
Sure.
That would kind of move some of
Sure.
them.
Yeah. Great point. Again, so like they're making an investment, the return is not going to be financial. You know, it is going to be in terms of social impact and community building and community supporting, bettering lives. And so, and kind of obliquely, this helps you and your brand and reputation as an organization. It's true. I mean, they know that, right? But like, I think your instinct to kind of come at it subtly is probably a good one, right? Okay. So we live in the digital age, right? You know, and so I did hashtag name your project. Because this again, so as much as we've kind of talked about like the brand of the funding organization or the grant provider, kind of think about your brand too, right? And rather than assume, I will ask, are you all doing publicity and promotion on social media for your projects? What is that like? Expensive. What are you paying for when you say that?
You have to find someone to do the job. I mean, in a more
Oh, like a designer and stuff?
in a
Okay.
more structured organization, that's resources going out. You might want to put out ads,
Sure.
digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
It's expensive.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm still in this like grassroots where you're like designing an Instagram grid post or something. But yeah, you probably hire people to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. But what I mean by this is, like, don't underestimate the power of a good project title, because that's part of your brand, right? Like a hashtag or an Instagram post. If someone Googles it, like what is the return on the Google, right? So just thinking about that kind of more public-facing presence, just strategically in terms of marketing, right? So even just the project title itself or the organization or the group that you're working with, it's the first thing that people see, and the name alone can tell a story, right? Do you all have titles do you mind sharing a couple?
Okay, I'll share mine. So mine is first class.
Okay.
So we have first class learning centers for the student, and for the social project, first class teacher capacity building.
Okay.
So what the story behind that, because most of our students are children, 4 years old, so this is their first class, and we want them to be the first in their class.
That's a catchy one.
That's a catchy one.
Yeah.
And then for the teacher also, we want them to be the first class teacher.
Sure. But that was what I was going to say. For when I hear first class, I think of airplanes, right? And the kind of the seating at the front. So there's this connotation of prestige. You're this special. You're at the top of the class. You are good.
You are exclusive and stuff.
Exclusive, yeah. And so that sounds like first class. So there's lots of different, you're kind of playing on the words in a cool way. Great. See, I'm telling you things that you all already know.
I want to share the name of the project because we have been thinking about this a lot.
Yeah.
Like we're working in the marketing, so in this new industry, the most important thing is the profit and the incentive.
Okay.
Because it's very new and there's no real use case yet. That's why they really focus on the incentive. So that's why we call our platform is truly your profitable platform.
Truly your profitable platform.
The two key things is your profitable.
Okay.
Because the ownership in the blockchain world is the most important in the future.
Yeah.
And the profitable is the most important thing they have for now. So that's why we choose that. That's the tagline.
This is amazing though, because I mean, like, each word matters, right? And so the coming at each word with intention and a kind of rationale behind it.
Subscribe ke bern.id. Dan jangan lupa untuk mengunduh Pranala App. Untuk video terbaru, kamu bisa klik video di kanan atas. Dan untuk video rekomendasi, bisa klik video di kanan bawah. Terima kasih.